Hey, what's up, y'all? This is Aaron Gordon here, and we are back here with the Aaron Gordon podcast. I have my special guest all the way from Italy right now. Jazmon, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
So obviously, we're going to just take you back through your journey. How did you first start playing basketball? I mean, obviously, you've had a long story career, but how did you first get into playing basketball?
Uh, when we were little, my dad kind of put us in different sports, just to get a feel of being active. And in the end, it was pretty much just choose your favorite sport. I went from soccer, softball, volleyball, cheerleading.
You
That
did
wasn't for me.
cheerleading?
I did cheerleading, yeah.
What grade
But
did you do
basketball,
cheerleading?
I don't know. It was like I said, it was like we got in every sport. And I mean, cheerleading is definitely a sport,
Yeah.
throwing people in the air, flipping, running, tossing, jumping. But yeah, it just wasn't for me. But yeah, basketball just stuck with me. I'm naturally athletic.
Mhm.
So yeah, I just stuck with it.
So what age was it when you really wanted to, take off from all your other sports and just focus on basketball?
Sixth grade was actually my first year playing organized basketball.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, so I tried out for my middle school team. I made the team, but I didn't play.
Hmm.
So I was pretty terrible. And then I made it like a mission, like during the summer, like I was like gonna work my tail off because I
Hmm.
wanted to play so bad. Like I would cry after every game. Like I'm like, I want to play so bad, I want to play so bad. And so yeah, so the summer going into my seventh grade year, I just worked really hard. I got onto an AAU team,
Hmm.
with like a local team, nothing big. And I got better. I ended up starting my seventh grade year, and then I ended up having to move um, to a different middle school, and then I made that team eighth grade year, and it just kind of went from there.
Yeah. So what was your entire, process like for, recruitment? Obviously, a lot of my, following has, just a lot of kids right now, trying to find their footing, trying to go through the recruiting process. What was it like for you? And, how did you end up going to James Madison?
My process was a lot different than how it is nowadays with social media.
Mhm.
A lot of players are able to put out their own videos and stuff like that on Twitter and Instagram, TikTok, all that stuff. So I was, in a small town, um, and I just had to put myself out there, and I got on an AAU team. That was pretty big. I don't know if you know about Fairfax Stars. That's a
Yeah.
pretty big AAU organization on the East Coast, and that kind of got my name out there. Um, James Madison University was the first college to give interest in me.
Yeah.
Um, and so I was like, I was excited, but it was throughout the AAU season where I kind of got more exposure. The Nike Elite tournaments were huge for me. The Boo
Yeah.
Williams tournaments were huge. Um, and I got a lot of offers, a lot of interest from, big schools, Maryland, North Carolina. Um, but my process, I wanted to go to a school that I knew where I was going to play.
Yeah.
It's easy to be like, oh, Maryland, playing for Brenda Freeze, like, oh, definitely going there. Like, but you have to think about like, okay, if I go there, am I going to play? Because then you got to think
Yeah.
about who's in front of you, who's starting, how many years they have left. That was kind of like my thought process. My dad had a huge impact on it too, because like he's more like logical
Yeah.
than emotional, like so
Yeah, I
he
definitely
he
had
had
that
to
in my
humble me
family.
down. Yeah, he had to
Yeah.
humble me down like really quick. He's like, you got to like think about it in these types of categories. Like, are you going to play? How many minutes? Who's there? Are they going to have like what you want to study? All of these different things. And JMU was kind of like a perfect fit because I'm close to home.
Hmm.
Beautiful campus. I don't know if you've seen it. It's a beautiful
Yeah,
campus.
I've seen it before.
Although it's a mid major,
Yeah, I've
they
had a lot of success.
they had a lot of success against big schools,
Yeah.
UVA, Virginia Tech. They like all the
Yeah.
sports have had success. So yeah, that was huge for me. I committed early. I committed actually really early, and my AAU coach at the time, she wasn't a big fan of me committing early. She was like, you're going to
Mhm.
get so much better offers, like bigger schools. Georgetown really wanted me really bad, but I just felt like I fit perfectly in the James Madison organization and what their vision was for me. I was down for it. So that's where I was kind of sold.
Yeah, and for most of y'all who don't know, I mean, James Madison, I mean, while you were there, y'all made it to NCAA tournament 3 times. This isn't
Oh,
just any old regular
yeah.
thing. This is, a top of the line. They've had, professional players, over tons of overseas players that went there. But what was it like redshirting? Because I mean, a lot of kids now, I mean, you're now starting to see the influx of, a lot of COVID year seniors, which, that's kind of, the situation I'm in, where a lot of freshmen are kind of down because a lot of them are now probably going to have to try to redshirt, or they're coming in knowing that they'll have to redshirt. What was your process like? What advice would you give someone who's going through that process?
Well, mine was kind of difficult because mine was a health reason.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I ended up being diagnosed with a heart condition that kind of had to sit me out for my first year until they
Mm-hmm.
kind of, made it sure that I can play without any issues. Um, but it was probably the best thing I've ever done in my life. I didn't want to do it. I
Mm-hmm.
cried, I begged, I pleaded, and my coach, Kenny Brooks, he was just like, listen, like this will be the best year for you to sit out because in the end, when you graduate and you leave here, you're gonna be making money. And I was like,
Mm-hmm.
okay, fine. It was great. By my redshirt freshman year, I'm starting. You
Yeah.
know, I wasn't gonna be able to start my freshman year. So throughout that whole redshirt year, I got stronger, I got faster, I got more skilled. I got more confidence. Um, and school wise, I ended up graduating in 4 years and then starting, working on my master's. Although I didn't finish, a fifth year it always sets you up because basketball is never forever.
Yeah.
Everybody knows that you can't play basketball forever. So you have to have, a set plan afterwards. And so for the athletes who are contemplating if they want a redshirt or not because of the COVID year, do it. I wish I was still in college. You know what I'm saying? Like
Yeah.
a lot of pro athletes, if you ask a lot of pro athletes now, they'll be like, hell yeah, I wish I was in college because you're pampered. You're pampered,
Yeah.
you're taken care of, and you're getting an education for free. So why not do it?
Yeah. So, I mean, one thing that a lot of people don't necessarily do that you did every single year was you improved every single year while you were in college. What sort of things made you do that? Obviously, you go through some cold streaks, some hot streaks. Everyone goes through it. But what made you be really steadily just getting better each and every year?
Um, I just kept working with Coach Brooks. Like we kind of made a deal when I first committed. He asked me if I wanted to make it to the WNBA. I said, yeah. He's like, okay, you meet me halfway, then I'll get you there. And so every year, like I worked with that man. Out of a week, a week of practice, I work with him individually like 6 or 7 times. And that's every week. I never really stopped, even during the summer. Like I was always in the gym. I was a gym rat. There was times where he had to kick me out because I was always in the gym.
Mm-hmm.
And you just have to have like that mentality because being in a mid-major and trying to make it into the league, you don't have the exposure that you do with like the UConns, the Baylors, the Oregons, the Oregon States. Like, so I had to work 10 times harder, to get better every year. But although I got drafted, my second, third, and fourth year, like I was a role player.
Mm-hmm.
Because we had dominant scorers on the team, and I was the one doing the dirty work, playing defense, rebounding, steals. I'll score when I need to, but I was the one finding and opening the court, for our scorers. But my last year, one of our scorers went down with the ACL tear, and then he looked at me, he's like, well, he's like, now you got to step up. So I had no choice. So I went from averaging 15, 16 points to averaging 20 plus points a game and being ranked nationally. So that's what really got me going, was just I played my role, but I got better individually as the years went on.
So what was that process like? Because I don't think people understand how hard it is to average 20 points in college. Like when you look back through like the history of like college basketball, men's and women's, there is not that many people that play Division I that have 2 O's standing next to points per game at any point. How hard was that to do in college? Because obviously people don't understand that when you have a good game or two in college, it's different than high school because the scouting reports change. When you have a game where you scored 20 plus points, the next team scouting, plan is going to be just to stop you and to change up the game. So how hard was that for you to do?
Honestly, it wasn't hard because the way I worked with Coach Brooks is that we would break down every scenario. Okay, if they're going to double me, this is what I'll do. If they're going to, top lock me, this is what I'm going to do. if they're going to trap me coming off, like, this is what I'm gonna do. Like, so I kind of had it, like, as the years went on, the game slowed down for me. You know, now I'm playing overseas. I'm like, everything's in slow motion, and I can just, you know, I'm playing slow, but to everybody else, I'm playing fast.
Yeah.
So yeah, to average 20 points for that, it was easy to me. And I can remember one game, I didn't score over 20 points, and the other team was excited, but they still lost. But they were happy because they kept me under 20 points.
Yeah.
So I'm just like, okay, well, if that's like the impact that I'm giving the other teams, like, I'm clearly doing my job. Like,
Yeah.
but yeah, as the years go on, the game will slow down and it gets easier, and it's like an old man's game. That's what I call it.
Yeah. So, so going through your WNBA process is a lot different than the men's process. It's a really quick turnaround. You literally go from playing into workouts and everything else. It's not like a long layoff. There's not an entire playoffs. It's kind of just like, bam, once you're there and you just go. What was that process like for you, and how hard was it to, literally just, change, kind of go into a different mindset and, really, really quickly like that?
I mean, I haven't stopped playing since then. I literally have been playing year round. So yeah, like you said, the process is a little different, but it's also really different for mid-major because I don't have as much exposure, and so my draft, I knew I wasn't going to be a high draft pick, hands down. So my main focus was just getting into the combines. I was actually in the Indianapolis combine during the Final Four there, and I just showed my ass. I had no choice because I had some interest from, I believe, San Antonio and the Mystics and Connecticut, those three. I had some interest, but I wasn't a high pick at all. So I knew that going into the combine that, I got to show my ass, and I got to play well. I got to grab the attentions of the scouts, of the coaches, and I played well. I honestly played well. I believe my agent told me that I was probably one of the top players to come out of that combine, and it was very beneficial. I hear, like, a lot of times, like, players don't want to go to combines because they don't want to, lower their stock. Well, it's a hit or miss. Like, if you don't go, then you don't get drafted because your numbers weren't high enough. They don't get to see you in enough film or whatever. So I made it a point to go to the combine. I did great. I met with a bunch of coaches. And being drafted, I got drafted 14th pick overall to Minnesota. And I was a little shocked for that one because I never talked to Minnesota at all. And then come to find out that it was a draft for trade, which is fine. San Antonio, who really wanted me, that was great. And then literally 2 weeks later, after I walked,
I actually remember that.
2 weeks later, I'm on a plane to San Antonio, and I'm starting my professional career.
So obviously, for most people, this is an Indianapolis-based podcast. You played there for 2 years. What was your relationship like with Tamika Catching? What's so funny is I was working out for her nephew yesterday, so this should be really interesting. What was your relationship like with her?
I loved Catch. She was my favorite player, one of my favorite players watching growing up. I was a little sad that she retired the number because 24 is my number. So when I got traded there, I was like, "Ooh, 24." I was like, "Wait, I can't get that." So that went to 1. But immediately when I got there, she welcomed me with open arms. She knew that it was going to be tough for me to kind of transition into a new organization. So she was there for me. She did a great program for the rookies and second year players, just to try to get us exposure to life after basketball, helping us with financial problems, like just handling our money, because when you're in college, nobody tells you how to handle the money that you're going to be making. Although for women it's not a lot, it's still you're making 40 plus grand within 5 months. That's a lot of money to handle in 5 months. So
sure.
She kept us in a tight rope with that. And my second year, she had a bigger role, so we didn't see her as much because she was in the Pacers office a little bit more, but she would still show face. And just to have that type of legend that was there, that played the game so well and made an impact in the league, was huge. I love her. I wish I still had her number. I got a new phone, but I would hit her up even when, I stopped playing with Indiana. She checked on me from here and there and made sure that I was good. So that's the type of person she is.
For sure, for sure.
Yeah.
So what was your experience like playing the Olympics? Because obviously that's the biggest stage in the world. You were hanging out with Paul Gasol, which you said was one of your favorite players.
Yeah.
But, what was that entire experience like?
It's unexplainable, I guess. It's something that I didn't think that I would ever be in, because my biggest dream was to play in the WNBA, and I made it there. That was my dream. I made it a reality. So when I joined the Puerto Rican national team, it wasn't like, okay, I'm joining so we can make the Olympics. It was more so, I got waived from the WNBA, which is the business, and it's going to happen, whether you want it or not, but life still goes on. So the national team was kind of like my fallback.
Yeah.
And it came out to be, going to the Olympics, but being there was just amazing. You don't really have words. You're just walking around the village and you're seeing all these great athletes, over 10,000 athletes that have worked their asses off to get to, the same point that you're at. And then seeing Pau Gasol, I'm just like, oh God, he played with Kobe. Like,
yeah,
that's my favorite player. And that was my favorite duo ever on the Lakers. I didn't care who else was playing. Shaq, nope, I don't care about Shaq. It was Pau and Kobe. Like, that was like,
I actually like their chemistry a little bit better than Shaq and Kobe. Me personally, I weirdly enough really like Dwayne Wade and Shaq. I actually like Dwayne Wade and Shaq more than Kobe and Shaq, but I do think that was probably the best duo between big man, little man. Especially since the modern era, because I think a lot of people love talking about Magic and Kareem, but I think the 2000 basketball is a little bit better than the 80s. In my personal opinion.
For sure. Early 2000s, yes. But just seeing that was the only picture I took. I saw a bunch of I saw Kevin Durant, Jason Tatum, I saw Luka, I saw so many people. And I was just like, when I saw Powell, I was like, I gotta take a picture with him.
Yeah.
And it just humbles you, because I know I'm good. I know that I'm a really good athlete. I'm a professional athlete. But when you see like people you've seen like growing up since you were like 10 up onwards, like, I didn't know what to say. I was just like, you are my favorite player. Between you and Kobe, you're the best duo. That's exactly what I said to him. And I showed him my tattoo on my leg, and he was like, that's really dope. And we took the picture. Yeah.
So what was your experience like playing in Italy? Because obviously, you're somewhere outside of Milan, right?
I'm like 20 minutes from Milan, yeah.
Yeah, and obviously most people know that Milan is one of the most beautiful places in the world. What is your experience like there? How's it just living there? Not even just playing, but just living in Italy.
Well, I was here last year as well. And last year was really rough because of COVID.
Yeah.
So it was pretty much shut down all last year. I didn't get to really explore.
Is it opening back up a little bit more?
It is open. This bitch is open. They don't care. As long as you got a vaccine and you got a mask on, then you can go in any place. Like, it's open, and it's freeing, because this place is so beautiful, and there's so many things you can do. The food, the sceneries, the monuments, the cathedrals. Like, there's so many places that you can go to. People are semi-friendly. I mean, you might run into an old person that may be a little grumpy, but other than that, like, it's a great place. Yeah.
So last and final question before we go off was, I saw you repost something, and it says, I want to be 100%. It says certain things you've learned about yourself while playing overseas. So what are certain things that you have learned about yourself when you play overseas? Because obviously it's a very different environment. What are some things that you've learned, about Jazmon that you probably didn't know before?
I don't have to depend on anybody else. That's kind of what I've learned over here, because you have nobody but yourself. You're secluded to yourself 98% of the time, other than when you're in the gym. And so you kind of got to take care of yourself, and you can't depend on the club half the time, because let's be realistic. Overseas, like, you can't rely on anybody here to pay you on time, to give you things that you need. You just kind of do it yourself, and just be your own advocate, because at the end of the day, you're just a pawn in their chess game. wherever they move you, you got to go. But if you stand up for yourself, for your body, you're going to end up, elongating your career, because they don't really care. As long as you're playing and you're making them money, they don't give a shit about your body. They really don't. So yeah, that's what I've learned while I've been over here. This is my sixth year. This is my second year in Italy, and this is by far the best organization that I've played for, by far. So yeah, just don't depend on anybody else. You can take care of yourself. You got yourself back. Like, at the end of the day, like, you making the money. That's it.
That's facts right there.
So whatever you do, you making the money, and you figure out what you do with your life. Nobody else.
For sure. Well, anyways, thank you so much for, doing this podcast. I really enjoyed it. Hope to have you on another time.
Yeah, no doubt. Thank you. I appreciate it.